The heavy iron gates opened slowly as the taxi pulled into the long driveway. Rosa pressed her face to the window and stared at the huge house in front of her. She had worked as a maid for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. The mansion looked like something from a movie, with tall white pillars and windows that seemed to go on forever. Her hands shook a little as she paid the taxi driver. At 51, Rosa thought she had seen everything. She had cleaned small apartments, big houses, and even fancy hotels. But this place was different. This was the home of David Mitchell, one of the richest men in the country. He owned steel, factories all over the world, and had more money than most people could imagine. The taxi drove away, leaving Rosa standing alone with her old brown suitcase. She had bought it 15 years ago when she first came to this country, looking for a better life. Now it looked tiny and worn compared to the grandness around her. A woman in a crisp black dress opened the front door. Her name was Mrs. Peterson, and she was the head housekeeper. She looked Rosa up and down with sharp eyes, the way someone might examine a new car before buying it. "You must be Rosa," Mrs. Peterson said in a voice that was neither warm nor cold. "Mr. Mitchell is in his office. He won't be coming out to meet you. He's very busy these days." Rosa nodded and followed Mrs. Peterson into the house. The inside was even more amazing than the outside. The ceiling was so high that Rosa had to tilt her head back to see it. Crystal lights hung down like frozen waterfalls, and the floors were made of marble that shined like mirrors. "Your job is simple," Mrs. Peterson explained as they walked through room after room. "Clean the house, help with cooking when needed, and stay out of Mr. Mitchell's way. He doesn't like to be bothered." They passed a huge living room with furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. That's when Rosa saw her. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, sat in the corner of the room. She was staring out a big window, but her eyes looked empty, like she wasn't really seeing anything at all. "That's Lily," Mrs. Peterson whispered, "Mr. Mitchell's daughter. Poor thing hasn't been the same since her mother died 6 months ago. Car accident. Very sad." Rosa's heart broke a little when she looked at the child. Lily had long dark hair that needed brushing and was wearing a pretty blue dress that was wrinkled. But it was her eyes that made Rosa want to cry. They were the eyes of someone much older, someone who had seen too much sadness. "Does she go to school?" Rosa asked quietly. "She has a teacher who comes here 3 times a week, but mostly she just sits there staring out windows. She barely eats, barely sleeps. The doctor says there's nothing wrong with her body, but her heart is broken." Mrs. Peterson showed Rosa to her room on the 3rd floor. It was small but clean, with a single bed and a window that looked out over the garden. Rosa had stayed in worse places, and she was grateful to have work. "Dinner is served at 6 in the kitchen for the staff," Mrs. Peterson said. "Mr. Mitchell eats in his office most nights. Lily usually doesn't eat much of anything." After Mrs. Peterson left, Rosa unpacked her few belongings. She had 3 uniforms, some personal items, and a small photo of her own daughter Maria, who now lived far away with her own family. Rosa missed Maria every day, but work was work, and she needed the money. That evening, Rosa went down to the kitchen for dinner. The other staff members were friendly enough, but they all seemed tired. The cook, an older man named Frank, told Rosa that working in the Mitchell house used to be different. "Before Mrs. Mitchell died, this place was full of life," Frank said. "Sadly, she would sing while she cooked with me sometimes, and the piano. Oh, that piano would play every evening. Beautiful music that filled the whole house." "There's a piano?" Rosa asked. "In the music room," Frank nodded. "Mrs. Mitchell played it every night for little Lily. Put her right to sleep, with the prettiest songs you ever heard. But now it just sits there collecting dust. Mr. Mitchell can't stand to hear it anymore. Too many memories." Rosa thought about this as she lay in bed that night. In the house where she grew up, her grandmother had an old piano. It wasn't fancy like the one here probably was, but Rosa remembered the music. Her grandmother would play simple songs and teach Rosa the melodies. Rosa's fingers weren't trained like a real piano player's, but she knew enough to play basic tunes. The next morning, Rosa started her work early. She cleaned the dining room, dusted the living areas, and helped Frank prepare breakfast. Mr. Mitchell left for his office before Rosa even saw him, but she heard his car driving away. Lily sat in the same corner of the living room, staring out the same window. Rosa brought her a plate of food, but the little girl barely looked at it. "Good morning, sweetheart," Rosa said gently. "I'm Rosa. I'm going to be helping take care of the house." Lily turned her head slightly but didn't speak. Her eyes met Rosa's for just a moment before she looked away again. During her lunch break, Rosa explored the house a bit more. She found the music room on the second floor. The piano was enormous and black, with keys that looked like they had never been touched. Sheet music sat on top, covered with a thin layer of dust. Rosa couldn't help herself. She sat on the piano bench and gently pressed one key. The sound that came out was pure and clear, much better than her grandmother's old piano. But she quickly stopped, remembering Mrs. Peterson's warning about staying out of Mr. Mitchell's way. That afternoon, while Rosa was cleaning the hallway near Lily's bedroom, she heard something that made her stop. It was crying, soft, heartbroken crying that seemed to come from deep inside a person's soul. Rosa followed the sound and found Lily sitting on her bed, holding a small stuffed rabbit and crying like her heart was breaking all over again. Rosa didn't think twice. She sat down on the bed next to Lily and gently put her arm around the little girl's shoulders. Lily didn't pull away, but she didn't stop crying either. "I miss my mama," Lily whispered, the first words Rosa had heard her speak. "I know, baby," Rosa said softly. "I know you do." They sat there together for a long time, and Rosa felt something she hadn't felt in years. This little girl needed more than just someone to clean her house and cook her food. She needed someone to care about her broken heart. That night, as Rosa lay in bed listening to the big, quiet house, she made a decision. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do, but she knew she had to do something. This little girl was drowning in sadness, and Rosa couldn't just stand by and watch. Rosa had been working at the Mitchell house for 3 weeks when she realized that something had to change. Every night, she could hear little footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Lily was wandering around the house, unable to sleep. The first time Rosa heard it, she thought maybe the child was going to the bathroom. But when it happened again the next night and the night after that, Rosa decided to see what was going on. She quietly opened her door and peeked out. There was Lily, in her white nightgown, walking slowly down the long hallway like a tiny ghost. Her bare feet made almost no sound on the cold marble floor. She would walk to one end of the hall, stand there for a few minutes, then walk back to the other end. Rosa's heart ached watching this. The little girl looked so lost, so alone in that big house. Rosa remembered when her own daughter Maria used to have bad dreams as a child. Maria would crawl into Rosa's bed, and Rosa would sing quiet songs until Maria fell back to sleep. The next morning at breakfast, Rosa asked Mrs. Peterson about Lily's sleeping problems. "Oh yes," Mrs. Peterson sighed. "She's been doing that since her mother died. We've tried everything. Warm milk, different bedtimes, even sleeping medicine from the doctor. Nothing works. She just wanders around all night." Frank, the cook, shook his head sadly. "Poor little thing. Her mama used to tuck her in every night and play piano music until she fell asleep. Now there's nothing but silence in this house." That day, Rosa watched Lily more carefully. The child would sit by the window during the day, but Rosa noticed she wasn't really looking outside. She was listening. Every time a car drove by or when the wind made the trees move, Lily would turn her head slightly like she was hoping to hear something special. During her afternoon break, Rosa went back to the music room. She sat at the big piano and looked at all the sheet music. Most of it looked very complicated with lots of notes that Rosa didn't understand, but underneath the fancy music she found something simpler. It was a book of old songs, the kind of music her grandmother used to play. Rosa looked around to make sure no one was watching, then gently placed her fingers on the keys. She started with a very simple melody, one her grandmother had taught her when she was just a little girl. The song was called "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," but her grandmother had played it in a special way that made it sound peaceful and sleepy. The piano sound was beautiful, much richer and clearer than any instrument Rosa had ever played. She was so lost in the music that she didn't notice someone standing in the doorway. "That's pretty," a small voice said. Rosa jumped and turned around. Lily was standing there in her blue dress, looking at Rosa with curious eyes. It was the first time Rosa had seen any real interest on the child's face. "Oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart," Rosa said quickly. "I wasn't supposed to touch the piano. I'll stop right now." "No," Lily said, taking a step closer. "Please play more. It sounds a lit." Rosa's heart nearly broke. She patted the piano bench next to her. "Would you like to sit with me?" Lily nodded and climbed up onto the bench. She was so small that her feet didn't touch the floor. Rosa started playing the simple melody again, and Lily sat very still, listening. "My grandmother taught me this song," Rosa said softly while she played. "She said music was like a warm hug that you could hear." For the first time since Rosa had arrived, Lily smiled just a tiny bit. That evening, after all her work was done, Rosa couldn't stop thinking about Lily's reaction to the music. She waited until the house was quiet, until she was sure Mr. Mitchell was locked away in his office and Mrs. Peterson had gone to her room. Then Rosa crept downstairs to the music room. She sat at the piano and began to play very softly. She chose the gentlest songs she knew, lullabies her grandmother had sung, simple melodies that felt like being rocked in someone's arms. Rosa's playing wasn't perfect. Sometimes she hit the wrong notes, and her timing wasn't always right. But there was something warm and loving about the music that filled the empty spaces in the big house. After about 10 minutes, Rosa heard those familiar little footsteps in the hallway. Lily appeared in the doorway, her dark hair messy from lying in bed. She stood there for a moment, listening, then walked over to the piano. Without saying anything, Lily climbed up onto the bench next to Rosa. She curled up against Rosa's side, like a tired kitten seeking warmth. Rosa kept playing, choosing songs that got slower and quieter as time went on. She could feel Lily's breathing getting deeper and more regular. The little girl's head grew heavy against Rosa's shoulder. 20 minutes later, Lily was fast asleep. Rosa very carefully stopped playing and looked down at the peaceful child beside her. For the first time in weeks, Lily's face looked relaxed. The worry lines that seemed too old for such a young face had smoothed away. Rosa gently picked up Lily and carried her back to her bedroom. The little girl was so deeply asleep that she didn't wake up when Rosa tucked her into bed and pulled the soft blankets up to her chin. The next morning, something was different. Lily came down to breakfast and actually ate some of her eggs. She still didn't talk much, but she seemed more awake, more present. Even Mrs. Peterson noticed. "I don't know what happened," Mrs. Peterson told Rosa privately, "but Lily slept through the whole night. That's the first time since her mother died." Rosa didn't say anything about the piano. She wasn't sure if she was supposed to be playing it, and she didn't want to get in trouble. But that night she went back to the music room again, and again Lily appeared after a few minutes. This time, Lily didn't wait to be invited. She climbed right up onto the piano bench and settled herself against Rosa's side like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Will you play the Star Song again?" Lily whispered. Rosa smiled and began to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in the gentle way her grandmother had taught her. As she played, she hummed along very quietly. Soon, Lily was humming too. It became their secret routine. Every night Rosa would wait until the house was quiet, then go to the music room. And every night, Lily would appear and curl up next to her on the piano bench. Rosa would play for exactly 30 minutes, long enough for Lily to fall into a deep, peaceful sleep. During the day, Lily started following Rosa around the house. She would help Rosa dust the furniture or fold the laundry, not saying much, but staying close. And sometimes, when Rosa was working, she would hear Lily humming one of the melodies from the night before. The other staff members noticed the change in Lily, but no one knew why the little girl was suddenly sleeping better and eating more. Rosa kept their midnight piano session secret, afraid that if anyone found out she might lose her job. But more than that, Rosa was afraid that if the music stopped, Lily would go back to being that lost, wandering little ghost in the hallway. And Rosa couldn't bear the thought of that happening. 2 months had passed since Rosa started her secret piano sessions with Lily, and the change in the little girl was amazing. She was eating her breakfast every morning, helping Rosa with small chores around the house and even talking in whispers when they were alone together. But Rosa was getting worried. Every night she had to be more and more careful not to get caught. She would wait until she heard Mr. Mitchell's office door close, then count to 100 before sneaking downstairs. Mrs. Peterson had mentioned once that Mr. Mitchell worked very late, sometimes until 2 in the morning, but Rosa never knew for sure when he might come out. The piano sessions had become the best part of both Rosa and Lily's days. Lily would appear in the music room exactly 10 minutes after Rosa started playing, like she had an internal clock. She would climb onto the bench, curl up against Rosa's side, and listen to the gentle melodies that filled the quiet house. Rosa had learned which songs worked best. Slow, simple tunes were perfect. Anything too fast or too loud would keep Lily awake instead of helping her sleep. Rosa's favorite was an old song called Scarborough Fair that her grandmother used to play. It had a mysterious, dreamy quality that seemed to wrap around Lily like a soft blanket. During the day, their friendship was growing stronger. Lily started asking Rosa questions while they worked together. "Rosa, did you have a little girl when you were young?" Lily asked one afternoon while they were dusting the library. "Yes, sweetheart, her name is Maria, and now she's all grown up with children of her own." "Do you miss her?" Rosa paused in her dusting. "Every single day, but I'm happy that she has her own family now." Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you think my mama misses me?" Rosa's heart squeezed tight. She knelt down so she was at Lily's eye level. "Oh, honey, I know she does. Mamas never stop loving their children, even when they can't be with them anymore." Lily nodded seriously, like she was storing this important information away in her heart. The other people working in the house started noticing how much better Lily was doing. Frank the cook mentioned that she was eating almost all of her meals now. Mrs. Peterson said she hadn't heard Lily crying in her room for weeks. "I don't know what's changed," Mrs. Peterson told Rosa one morning, "but whatever it is, I hope it keeps up. Mr. Mitchell has even noticed. He asked me yesterday if Lily seemed different to me." This worried Rosa. If Mr. Mitchell was paying attention to his daughter's improvement, he might start investigating why. Rosa had heard from the other staff that Mr. Mitchell was a very smart man who noticed everything about his business. What if he started noticing things around the house too? Rosa's fears grew stronger when she overheard a phone conversation between Mr. Mitchell and someone who sounded like a doctor. "Oh, I know you said there was nothing physically wrong with her," Mr. Mitchell was saying, "but she's definitely different lately. More alert, sleeping better, eating more. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything." That night, Rosa was extra careful when she went to the music room. She played even more quietly than usual, choosing the softest songs she knew. Lily still appeared as always, climbing onto the bench and settling against Rosa's shoulder. "Rosa," Lily whispered after they had been sitting together for a while, "why do we only play music at nighttime?" Rosa thought carefully about how to answer. "Well, sweetheart, sometimes the most special things happen when the world is quiet and peaceful. Like a secret? Like a very special secret just between us." Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. She hummed along to a lullaby Rosa was playing, and soon she was fast asleep. But as Rosa carried Lily back to her bedroom, she couldn't shake the feeling that their secret wouldn't stay hidden much longer. The next day brought an unexpected challenge. Mrs. Peterson announced that a cleaning company was coming to deep clean the music room. "They need to clean that piano properly," Mrs. Peterson explained to Rosa. "It's been gathering dust for months, and Mr. Mitchell mentioned that it needs attention." Rosa's stomach dropped. If people were going to be working in the music room, how could she and Lily have their evening session? That night, Rosa waited in her room, hoping maybe Lily would sleep without the music. But sure enough, after an hour, she heard those familiar little footsteps in the hallway. Rosa found Lily standing outside the music room looking confused and sad. "Why is the door closed?" Lily whispered. "There are people cleaning in there today, sweetheart. We can't play tonight." Lily's face crumpled, and Rosa could see tears starting to form in her eyes. Without the music, Lily spent the whole night wandering the halls again, just like she had before Rosa started playing. The next morning, Lily was back to barely eating her breakfast and staring out the window with empty eyes. It was like watching a flower wilt, and Rosa couldn't stand it. That evening, the music room was available again, cleaner than it had been in months. Rosa made sure to start playing a little earlier, and when Lily appeared, she looked relieved and happy. "I missed the music," Lily said simply as she climbed onto the bench. "I missed it too," Rosa admitted. As Lily fell asleep to the gentle melody of Brahms' lullaby, Rosa made a decision. She was going to teach Lily some simple piano notes during their daytime hours together. That way, if something happened and Rosa couldn't play anymore, Lily would have some connection to the music that brought her so much peace. The next afternoon, while Mrs. Peterson was running errands and the house was quiet, Rosa brought Lily to the music room. "Would you like to learn to make music yourself?" Rosa asked. Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. Rosa showed her how to sit properly on the bench and where to place her small fingers on the keys. Lily was a quick learner, and soon she could play simple scales in the beginning of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." "This is the song you played for me the very first time," Lily said, concentrating hard on getting the notes right. "That's right. And now you can play it too." These daytime piano lessons became another special time for them. Lily was eager to learn, and Rosa discovered that teaching music brought her joy she hadn't felt in years. It reminded her of teaching her own daughter Maria to braid hair and tie shoes when Maria was small. But Rosa was still nervous about keeping their secret. Every night, she worried that Mr. Mitchell might hear them. Every day she wondered if someone would ask questions about why Lily was so much happier. 3 weeks into their daytime lessons, something happened that changed everything. Lily was practicing a simple song when she hit a wrong note that made a loud, discordant sound. Both Rosa and Lily froze, listening to see if anyone had heard. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside the music room, getting closer and closer. Rosa's heart began to race. Someone was coming and there was nowhere to hide. She looked at Lily, who had gone very pale, and realized that their secret was about to be discovered. The footsteps stopped right outside the music room door. The footsteps stopped right outside the music room door. Rosa's heart was beating so fast she thought it might jump out of her chest. Lily sat frozen on the piano bench, her small hands still touching the keys where she had hit the wrong note. Rosa quickly stood up, ready to explain herself, ready to apologize, ready to pack her bags if necessary. She had known this day would come eventually. She just hoped whoever was about to walk through that door would understand that she was only trying to help. The door opened slowly, and Rosa's stomach dropped. It wasn't Mrs. Peterson or Frank or any of the other staff members. It was Mr. Mitchell himself. David Mitchell was a tall man with dark hair that was starting to turn gray at the sides. He usually wore expensive suits and had the kind of serious face that came from making important business decisions every day. Rosa had only seen him a few times since she started working there, and he had never spoken directly to her. But now, standing in the doorway of the music room, he looked different. His tie was loose around his neck, his shirt sleeves were rolled up, and his face showed something Rosa had never seen before: complete shock. His eyes went from Rosa to Lily, then to the piano, then back to Rosa again. For a long moment, nobody said anything. The silence in the room felt heavy and uncomfortable. Lily was the first to speak, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Daddy, Rosa has been teaching me to play piano, just like Mama used to." Mr. Mitchell's face went very pale. He stepped into the room but didn't come any closer to the piano. Rosa could see his hands shaking slightly. "How long has this been going on?" he asked, and his voice sounded strange, like someone who was trying very hard not to cry. Rosa swallowed hard. "About 2 months, sir. I'm very sorry. I know I should have asked permission, but Lily was having such trouble sleeping and I thought..." Maybe some music might help her, just like it used to when her mother— "Stop," Mr. Mitchell said, holding up his hand. But he didn't sound angry. He sounded overwhelmed, like someone who had just received news that was too big to understand all at once. He walked slowly over to the piano and looked down at his daughter. Lily stared up at him with worried eyes, clearly afraid that she and Rosa were in trouble. "Play something," Mr. Mitchell said quietly. "What?" Rosa wasn't sure she had heard him correctly. "I said play something. Please." Rosa looked at Lily, who nodded encouragingly. With trembling fingers, Rosa placed her hands on the piano keys and began to play one of the gentle lullabies she had been playing for Lily every night. It was a simple, peaceful melody that always helped Lily fall asleep. As the music filled the room, something extraordinary happened. Mr. Mitchell's stern business face began to crumble. His eyes filled with tears and his shoulders started to shake. Rosa had never seen a grown man cry like this before, and she didn't know whether to stop playing or keep going. She kept playing. Mr. Mitchell sat down heavily in a chair near the piano, as if his legs couldn't hold him up anymore. The tears were rolling down his cheeks now, and he wasn't trying to hide them. "That's almost exactly how she used to play it," he whispered. "Not the same notes, but the same feeling, the same love." Rosa's own eyes started to fill with tears as she continued playing. She understood now why Mr. Mitchell had avoided the music room for so long. Every note probably reminded him of his wife, of the life they had built together, of everything he had lost. When Rosa finished the song, the room was quiet again. But this time, the silence felt different. It felt like something important had just happened, something that couldn't be undone. "I come home early from work sometimes," Mr. Mitchell said, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand, "just to check on Lily. For the past few weeks I've been hearing music coming from this room, late at night. At first I thought I was imagining it. I thought maybe I was going crazy from missing my wife so much." He looked at Rosa with an expression she couldn't quite read. "But it was real, it was you." "Yes, sir," Rosa said quietly. "I know I should have asked, how is she sleeping?" Mr. Mitchell interrupted. "Much better, sir. She falls asleep easily now, and she stays asleep all night." "And eating?" "She's eating almost everything at every meal." Mr. Mitchell looked at his daughter, really looked at her, for what seemed like the first time in months. Lily looked back at him, and Rosa could see how much the little girl missed her father, even though he was sitting right there in the same room. "Lily," Mr. Mitchell said, and his voice was gentler than Rosa had ever heard it. "Are you happy when Rosa plays music for you?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "It makes me feel safe, Daddy, just like when Mama used to play. And Rosa is teaching me to play too. Watch." Without waiting for permission, Lily placed her small fingers on the piano keys and carefully played the simple version of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" that Rosa had taught her. Her technique wasn't perfect, but she played with concentration and pride. When she finished, she looked up at her father with hopeful eyes. "Did you like it?" Mr. Mitchell's face broke into the first real smile Rosa had seen from him since she started working there. "It was beautiful, sweetheart. Just beautiful." He stood up and walked over to the piano bench. For a moment, Rosa thought he might ask her to leave so he could be alone with his daughter. Instead, he sat down on the other side of Lily, so the little girl was between Rosa and her father. "I used to play piano when I was young," Mr. Mitchell said, looking down at the keys. "Not very well, but I knew a few songs. I haven't touched a piano in 20 years. "Rosa could teach you too," Lily said excitedly. "She's a really good teacher." Mr. Mitchell looked at Rosa, and she saw something in his eyes that she hadn't expected. Gratitude. "I owe you an apology," he said, "and a thank you. I've been so buried in my work, so lost in my own grief that I didn't see what my daughter needed. You saw it, and you helped her when I couldn't." Rosa felt tears starting in her own eyes. "She's a very special little girl, sir. She just needed someone to listen to her heart. Will you?" Mr. Mitchell started, then stopped. He seemed to be struggling with what to say next. "Would you be willing to keep playing for her, Not in secret this time, but as part of her routine. I could pay you extra for music lessons. No extra pay needed, sir, Rosa said quickly, taking care of Lily. Isn't just work for me. She's become very dear to my heart. Mr. Mitchell nodded, and Rosa could see that he understood exactly what she meant. That night, for the first time since Rosa had been working at the house, all three of them sat together at the piano. Rosa played her gentle lullabies. Lily curled up against her side just like always, and Mr. Mitchell sat quietly nearby, listening to the music that was slowly healing his broken family. 6 months had passed since that evening when Mr. Mitchell discovered Rosa and Lily at the piano, and everything in the house had changed. The music room, which had been silent and dusty for so long, was now the heart of their home. Every evening, at 7 o'clock, the three of them would gather at the piano. It had become their special time together, something they all looked forward to after long days. Rosa would play her gentle melodies, Lily would practice the songs she was learning, and Mr. Mitchell would sit nearby, sometimes just listening, sometimes trying to remember the simple tunes he had learned as a boy. Mr. Mitchell had surprised everyone, including himself, by how much he enjoyed these evening sessions. The first few weeks had been difficult for him. Hearing music in the house again brought back so many memories of his wife that sometimes he would have to leave the room to compose himself. But gradually, the pain of remembering began to mix with something else, the joy of watching his daughter come back to life. Rosa, Lily said one evening as they sat at the piano together, do you think Mama can hear us when we play? Rosa and Mr. Mitchell exchanged a look over Lily's head. These were the kinds of questions that came up more often now that Lily was talking about her feelings instead of keeping them locked inside. I think she can, Rosa said gently. And I think it makes her very happy to see you learning to play music, just like she did. I think so too, Mr. Mitchell added, his voice soft. Your mama loved music more than almost anything. She would be so proud of how well you're playing. Lily smiled and returned to practicing her latest song. She was working on Amazing Grace, which was more difficult than anything she had learned before, but she was determined to master it. The changes in Lily were remarkable. She was sleeping peacefully every night, eating well, and had even started asking to invite friends over to play. But more than that, she was laughing again. Real, genuine laughter that filled the house with joy. Mr. Mitchell had changed too. He still worked hard at his business, but he made sure to be home by 6 o'clock every evening for their piano time. He had started eating dinner with Lily instead of hiding in his office, and on weekends he would take her to the park or to visit museums. Rosa watched these changes with a full heart. She had come to this house as just a maid looking for work, but she had found something much more valuable, a family that needed her as much as she needed them. One Saturday morning, Mr. Mitchell asked Rosa to join him for coffee in the garden. This was unusual because they didn't typically have private conversations, but Rosa could tell he had something important on his mind. Rosa, he began, looking a bit nervous. I want to talk to you about something. Lily's birthday is coming up next month, and I've been thinking about what would make her happiest. Rosa waited for him to continue. I know this might be too much to ask, he said, but would you consider staying with us permanently? Not just as an employee, but as part of our family? Lily loves you like a grandmother, and honestly, I can't imagine our lives without you now. Rosa felt her eyes fill with tears. In all her years of working for different families, no one had ever asked her to truly become part of their family. Mr. Mitchell, she said, I would be honored. This house feels more like home to me than anywhere I've lived in years. Please, he said with a smile, call me David. We're family now. That evening, they told Lily about the arrangement. The little girl was so excited that she immediately insisted on playing a celebration song on the piano. She chose Happy Birthday, even though her birthday was still 3 weeks away. As Lily's birthday approached, Rosa and David worked together to plan a special party. They decided to make it a musical celebration, with the piano as the centerpiece. They invited some of Lily's school friends and their families, and Rosa spent days preparing special foods and decorations. The night before the party, as they sat at the piano for their usual evening session, Lily had a surprise for them. "I've been practicing a special song," she announced. "I wanted to learn it all by myself to play for my birthday." She positioned her hands on the keys and began to play. The melody was For Elise, the same piece that her mother used to play for her every night. It wasn't perfect, and she had to stop and start over a few times, but she played with such love and determination that both Rosa and David were in tears by the time she finished. "That was Mama's favorite song," Lily said when she was done. "Rosa helped me find the music for it, but I learned it all by myself. Do you think Mama would be proud?" "I know she would be," David said, pulling his daughter into a hug. "She would be so very proud of you." The birthday party the next day was a huge success. All of Lily's friends were amazed by her piano playing, and several parents asked Rosa if she would consider giving lessons to their children too. Rosa was surprised to discover that she loved the idea of teaching music to more children. "You should start a music school," David suggested later that evening as they cleaned up after the party. "You have such a gift for teaching, and look how much joy it brings to children." "I've never thought of myself as a real teacher," Rosa said. "I just play simple songs that my grandmother taught me." "Sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful," David replied. "You brought music back into our lives when we needed it most. You could do the same for other families." 3 months later, Rosa had 6 piano students who came to the house twice a week for lessons. The music room was filled with children's laughter and the sound of little fingers learning to make beautiful music. David had the piano tuned professionally and bought several books of beginner songs, but the most special time was still their evening sessions together. Every night at 7 o'clock, Rosa, David, and Lily would gather at the piano. Sometimes they would practice songs, sometimes they would just play whatever came to mind, and sometimes they would sit quietly and listen to Rosa play the gentle lullabies that had started it all. One evening, almost a year after Rosa had first arrived, at the house, Lily made an announcement. "I want to learn to play Mama's wedding song," she said. "The one you and Mama danced to at your wedding, Daddy." David's eyes grew misty. "That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart. It was called The Way You Look Tonight. Do you think Rosa can help you learn it?" Rosa smiled. "I think we can figure it out together." As they began working through the melody, Rosa realized how far they had all come. A year ago, this house had been filled with silence and sadness. Now it was filled with music, laughter, and love. They had become a real family, bound together not by blood but by the healing power of music and the choice to care for each other. Lily was no longer the lonely, grieving child who wandered the halls at night. David was no longer the distant father who hid from his pain and work. And Rosa was no longer just a maid looking for her next job. They were a family, and music had brought them together.